specifics on that. Cool. Okay. Well, give it 2 seconds for somebody to pop in, and as soon as anybody does, we will get rocking and rolling. Yeah. No, he's just like, he's so good. He's so freaking good. And like the Jack Katz thing is awesome. Like that Kickstarter is super cool.
Yeah, when I saw the when I went to the page for the Kickstarter and I started looking at that line work, because I'd only tangentially heard the name, I was like, oh my God, this unbelievable.
He's like, you know what, in terms of like the level of like craft, reminds me of Wally Wood a lot.
Yeah,
big time. So yeah, it's sick.
I think his Green Lantern with Grant Morrison, I think that's going to be a classic. I really think that's underrated. I have always had issues with Grant Morrison as a writer, but his stories always seem to resonate and they grow over time, just like his Final Crisis did. And and with Liam Sharp's art, it's just absolutely beautiful. It's stunning. It really is a complete. It feels like a different multiverse, his Green Lantern series, and it's as story wise, it's challenging to really get into, but you know, it's definitely its own world, and that's thanks to Liam Sharp. It's a nice combination of artist and writer, frankly.
Yeah. Yep. No, I feel you. I hear you. Makes a lot of I can't elaborate on that. So Ed Brewer just saying, hey guys, what's up, Ed? Thanks for popping in tonight. No, it was super last minute. So
yeah. Sorry, I got the press release for this DC stuff, and I thought it'd be fun to jump on and talk about it. Wish we could have given you guys more notice.
Yeah, you know, these are sometimes turn out to be some of the fun ones. So, Mr. DC Comics saying, "What's up, people? What's going on, dude?" I think I don't know if you saw. I think it was you, Mr. DC Comics. I think you won a digital copy of the first issue of my comic through one of my videos. So look at your YouTube notifications. I think it was on one of my Dark Detective videos, man. So if you want to redeem that, just double check to make sure and hit me up so I can get that to you, buddy. Hawkworld saying, is this the place where I can listen to three guys complain about comics? That it is. It is us. Hopefully we have something positive to say, but I can't speak for everybody else. Jalen Neely saying, excited for Tim Burton Batman 89 comic run. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are. You know, there's a good reason why I threw that bad boy up on the thumbnail there. And Paul Baker says, Morrison and Sharp made a Chicken Lady my second favorite Green Lantern. Love their run. Yeah, the art is absolutely stunning. Grant Morrison's one of my favorites. I admittedly I don't think I've read it since season 2 started. Just because with Grant, I feel better reading him in trade sometimes or in bulk, but nonetheless, a gorgeous book doing some really interesting things, pushing the line with Hal. So, you know, I guess you can't ask much more than that.
Yeah, I'm the same. So I've been buying the individual issues.
Yep. For
Liam's art.
Same.
Once I have the whole thing, including the Black Stars, that was kind of the interlude. Yeah. I'm just going to sit down and read it all the way through, probably 2 or 3 times to try to see if I can understand it.
It's funny. I got to admit, with the Green Lantern, Liam Sharp's and Grant Morrison's Green Lantern, that's the one series where I've never bought a single cover B because Liam Sharp's cover A's are better, and that's rare because usually I'll flip flop, but I've never deviated from Liam Sharp's covers on.
Yeah, either buy Liam's cover or there's a couple times I bought both, but. I do remember reading like the first 3 or 4 issues and being like, nah, man, I'm going to nope right out of this. But then I'm like, nah, I got to keep buying them because it's Liam. And then I do remember going back and doing a second reread on like issues 1 through 3 and getting a lot more out of it, going, okay, now I can kind of see what's going on because I was lost the first time. So I think if I sit down and read it all together, like twice, I'll probably get it. Although, again, I just don't know. I mean, I'm not a big Morrison fan, except for All-Star Superman, which I really love. And the other thing that he's done that I absolutely love, and I talked about it during the 12 days of the Comic Source last year, and part of it is because he doesn't pull, he's not referring back to anything. You know, he likes to do that because he has such a wealth of knowledge. But his Claus series from Boom, The Legend of Santa Claus,
yeah,
that's just outstanding. That's a book I will read every year around Christmas time until the day I die. Like I finally read the whole thing last year during Christmas 2020, and yeah, I will revisit that every holiday season for the rest of my life. It's that good.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm a big Grant guy. You know, he's a big force in getting me into comics in a huge way. So, you know, I mean, I liked season 1. I think there was just a point towards the end where I was like, you know, I'm usually the guy that like people come to when they don't exactly know what's going on, and I don't know what's going on. So I didn't really know who to go to. um, so, you know, I'm like, I'll give some time, and hopefully I'll be able to read it in a little bit more digestible bite. But I don't want to get too off topic. We'll just intro us in, get into
we
it.
should just go crazy. Look at people in the comments are talking about all kinds of stuff. Todd McFarlane's Spawn universe got announced yesterday. That's crazy.
Yeah.
The Invincible trailer dropped today. I say we can obviously talk about whatever, and we do want to touch on the DC stuff, but I'm happy to let's talk about all this nerd stuff.
Let's knock out like the topic at hand first, and then we can kind of mosey on into some crazy stuff. So just because there's definitely going to be somebody that sees the title and the thumbnail is like, where's DC talk? Yeah. So I want to welcome everybody to the 68th episode of Let's Talk Comics. Myself and other co-hosts of the comic book community discuss one of the many facets of the storytelling medium that is comics, whether it be stories, creators, constructs, adaptations. We hit it all. This week I am joined by the boys, of course. The one and only Canadian Cape Crusader, to one of my sides that I'm not going to point to and embarrass myself, Comic Boom, and of course, just below me, the one and only Jace of the Comic Source podcast. Gentlemen,
hey guys.
It is good to be chatting with you, and I think the short notice might have made it even better.
Yeah, hanging out on a Friday night, talking some comics.
That's right. And I already had 2 beers, so I'm good to go.
I'm on my second bourbon. In the interest of full disclosure, Dark Knight and I got on a podcast, recorded a podcast earlier today for his second issue. Hope you guys have all gone and pledged his campaign for Area 51, the Helix project. If you haven't, go and check it out. And we have an interview where we talk about it. We'll be coming up on the next Kickstarter spotlight on the Comic Source coming up Wednesday if you want to hear more details. But don't wait. Go pledge now. And then come listen and get a little bit of sneak peek on what to expect in issue number 2.
Yes, sir, Bob. You guys can go click a link in the description below to go do that, by the way. I would absolutely love over the course of this stream to hit $4,000 in pre-orders over 2 days, which is nuts. 38 days left. The more the campaign makes, the more I'm able to give via stretch goals. So let's do it. You guys are my day ones, the Dark Knight freaking Nation. And I need you now more than ever. I think I made a pretty freaking kick-ass comic book. And I think it's different than something you're going to be picking up from anywhere else. And if you, by chance, made the mistake and didn't pick up issue 1, it's available for you there with multiple ways for you to get to it and catch up. So please consider giving it a look. If you happen to do it, over the course of the stream, let me know in the live chat so I can go kiss your baby on the forehead and whatever else, you know, really good politicians do. But
I will be reviewing the Helix Project issue 1 myself this weekend, and with a link to for the promotion of issue 2. It's a very good comic, and as everyone knows, Trevor and I don't get along, so I'm going to be very honest in my review. And but in all seriousness, it's pretty good, and you can check out my review. That'll be coming out in the next 48 hours.
Do it up. So you guys have 2 different chances to get some Helix Project dosage from both of these gentlemen. Links in the description below. And you know, we're talking about the future of DC Comics. You know, if you guys back this project and it does really well, maybe I get to be the future of DC Comics. So let's go do that.
That would be cool.
Let me
they're at the bottom of the barrel now, so it can only go up.
So let's help rise all tides. So obviously today we're kind of discussing like what's going on with DC, the future, and it was all prompted by a press release that was sent out to comic book shops. And you know, as you guys had said off screen, it seems like a little bit of a scramble. And Jace, you were the one to kind of bring us this information. So why don't you let everybody know exactly what we're talking about here?
Yeah, so every year, Comics Pro, which is kind of like a coalition of comic book retailers, basically, they have a couple times a year where they would get together and usually at conventions. They have a big Comics Pro, get together at San Diego Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, and it's a chance for retailers to get in front of publishers, and publishers say, hey, here's our plan for the next, X amount of time. And they would tell a lot more to the retailers than they would tell to the fans, like, hey, here's covers, we're going to make this returnable. We're going to give you this discount. We're going to do this special promotion, so on and so forth. Maybe they'd even, tell the retailers, hey, if you want a preview digital copy, come sign up or whatever. Obviously, with the pandemic still going on, these things have been happening digitally over the last couple of days. So news has been coming out from the Comic Pro virtual get-together that's been going on about various things where the publishers get up there and they say, hey, this is what our numbers look like for last year. This is what is coming up this next year. So today was DC, which is always one of the bigger ones. They usually do a pretty good job. Seemed like kind of a mess. And I was telling Knight and Comic Boom before we went live, it used to be DC released these press releases and they were on point. It was this information about this title coming out on this day with this creative team. And sometimes we'd know, 4, 5, 6 months in advance. Lately, we get these press releases that say, we think it's going to be this title. We're not sure who the creative team is. We don't have any other information right now, so don't ask. And everything that's in this press release might change between you reading it now and the actual comic coming out. So I don't know if this is just a byproduct of them having less editorial staff to kind of nail things down, if it's still a little bit of just them trying to find their footing, or if it's just going to be par for the course of how DC goes about things now, where everything's kind of scattershot, because despite Marie Javins having the title of editor-in-chief, there really isn't any one leader over there. Like him or not, Dan Didio wore that hat as publisher, as co-publisher, whatever. Jim Lee handled more the business side and logistical side. It was really, we all know, Dan Didio that was driving that ship. And it's hard to replace that kind of leadership. Whether you agreed with his decisions or not, the fact was he was the one that was putting his foot down and saying, this is the direction we were going. You might not have agreed with him, but everybody that was working at DC followed him. And it might just be an issue. I'm hoping, if we want to look on the positive side, or we just got to give Marie time to, get all her ducks in a row. When you think about it, it's only been less than 2 months, maybe right around 2 months, that she lost, half her editorial staff or what have you. So it's going to take a little while for her to find her footing. I've been saying all along, it's not until May or June that we can really tell what the future of DC is going to look like. But they did release a number of titles, the names of a number of titles, no creative teams. And so I just thought it'd be fun to come on and go down the list of kind of titles they announced and just speculate. Like, what do we think we might see? What do we hope we might see? What do we not want to see? Maybe because there is a list of, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 titles that they said, hey, they're coming with more information forthcoming on these projects throughout the rest of this year. So,
what's funny? I feel like this is so indicative to not only how DC seems to be operating with their marketing these last few years, but the future. It's very much like, hey, we're going to throw a couple things out there, and if at least 25 of you talk about it, we might do it. Like, we might actually do this thing. And it's been a persisting thing for years. I mean, you're seeing it now with the Future State stuff. Now we're getting these announcements for these little Future State anthologies or whatever post Future State because it sold. I guarantee you they didn't plan on doing that before Future State launched. It was very much a last minute thing. So, it's so hard to kind of get a finger on the pulse of as to whether or not they have an actual plan, whether or not these books will actually all come into fruition. I mean, the Batman ones will. Those are pretty much a guarantee because
there's one way to look at this list where you could say over half these titles. It's 11 titles, right? Did I count that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. Theoretically, this could be 6 Batman titles. If you want to think of Harley Quinn as a derivative of the Joker, which is a derivative of Batman, that one might be a little bit of a stretch. But if we count that one, Elseworlds is going to have Batman, so that's 2. I'm even going to assume that DC Vampires might not be too much Batman, but Robin and Batman, obviously 3, Joker 4, Legend of Batman 5, and DC Middle Ages is going to have a bunch of Batman. That's 6. If DC Vampires ends up being Batman-centric as well, you could be looking at 7 out of 11 titles, Batman.
There's no way the vampire book is not Batman centric. A, because it was literally Batman Red Rain that introduced the concept. But B, vampires, guy that runs around beating people up at night. Yeah, there's no way.
Well, they did do an Eye Vampire for the New 52 that didn't have anything to do with Batman. So I don't want to assume that one. So I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. But even so, even if we assume that DC Vampires is not a Batman title, you still have 6 out of 11 that are Batman related. That Batman could easily show up in.
They're definitely going to for they're not really focusing on any sort of theme of hope or anything like that, which is maybe was naive of us to think they would. There's definitely this is villain centric. Deathstroke, Harley Quinn. Okay, they're reforming Harley Quinn to make her good, but DC Vampires being a working title, what's that about? Joker, Crush and Lobo. Well, Crush is kind of badass. So's Lobo. Nubia and the Amazons. These are there's a lot of diversity there. Crush is a lesbian. Nubia is black. Focusing on the Amazons. These are very safe. These are politically correct and very, very safe choices. There's nothing really outside the box here, and this is what I would expect a corporate powerhouse to do. Nothing on this to me strikes that is going to be surprising to me. Elseworlds is the only thing that has potential. The other thing that stands out to me is they're calling it Robin and Batman instead of Batman and Robin. So I guess they're focusing on sidekicks. This really does have, I don't know. This is very, very underwhelming to me. You know, I was much more, if I'm looking more at the film slate and the movie slate for DC, I'm with Suicide Squad and all that's a different topic, but I'm much more excited about what's outside of DC publishing right now than what they're doing. I don't look at this. None of this really cries out to me is that I need to get any of this stuff. I don't know.
Some of it's pretty exciting to me, but the problem I have is I have no faith based on the recent track record that these books are going to be good. But yeah. I love Nubia. I love the story that L. McKinney told with Nubia. So if L's going to be on it, and she told me, in fact, there's an interview with her and Robin Smith. They did the YA Nubia Real one that comes out this coming Tuesday. So that interview with them will drop that day. And she tells me during that interview how much fun she had working on Nubia and how different it was than doing the young adult graphic novel as opposed to doing the 40-page story in the comic, and how much fun, and she'd love to do more. So, and I really enjoyed it. So, if she's on that, I would pick that up for sure. A DC Middle Ages could work if it's not, too much Batman. I do find it interesting. So Wonder Woman 80th anniversary title. We already have, the Wonder Girl title, kind of Wonder Woman. We have the Immortal Wonder Woman that's coming up with Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad, which I didn't really enjoy. It was honestly kind of boring, the Future State Immortal Wonder Woman. But then you have the, is it Sensational Wonder Woman that Stephanie Phillips is doing? Yeah. And now we're going with a Nubia Amazons and a Wonder Woman 80. That's 5 Wonder Woman titles. I like Wonder Woman and I want her books to sell more, but the fact of the matter is they don't. Does DC really think they can support 5 Wonder Woman titles? That doesn't seem like smart thinking to me.
In fairness, though, they're different Wonder Women. I mean, it's a diverse cast, so it's really more of a Wonder family. It's a Wonder Woman family, which, I suppose, to play devil's advocate, it's a long time coming. It's about time Wonder Woman had more of a family, and I like the fact that DC is focusing, because we got a Batman family, a Superman family. Wonder Woman, I think it's about time she had more of an expanded universe.
I agree. I find Nubia right now to be more interesting than Diana, but even still, you're still talking about 3 Wonder Woman titles. If you talk about the one that Stephanie Phillips is writing, the Immortal one, and this Wonder Woman 80th anniversary, it still seems like a lot. Again, I want it to work, but I just don't know that it will. Deathstroke, I mean, he's relatively popular. I could see that working. Elseworlds, again, it's probably going to be character specific. Who knows about the vampire title? Again, very character specific. We know Robin and Batman's going to sell. We know Joker's going to sell. Legend of Batman. So that one actually wasn't that the one that Derek Robertson from The Boys, didn't he already get announced on that? I thought.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I think so.
They've been changing the titles around, because I wasn't like Tom Taylor and Andy Kubert's Batman going to be like Batman the Dark Knight, and now it's like Batman Detective or something like that.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty much the indicator that they'll likely bring back the Batman the Dark Knight sort of, it's not quite an anthology, but it's like a long going series of mini series.
Yeah, well, there's going to be a Legends of the Dark Knight, a digital series in March. In Legends of the Dark Knight. I know that was that's right on the Twitter page, but I don't. It's not Legend. It's not called Legend of Batman, so I'm not sure if that's the same thing or what.
Yeah, DC resurrects Legends of the Dark Knight as a weekly anthology series, and the opening arc is by Derek Robertson, whom people may know from Metropolitan or The Boys. Recently, he did that Constantine Rise and Fall with Tom Taylor that was really excellent. So that one we kind of already know, Legend of the Batman. Derek Robertson.
Another Batman anthology. You got Batman Black and White. You have Batman, was it Streets of Gotham?
That is a limited, though. That is a limited. But I get what you're saying. It is a lot of anthologies. You have the Future State Gotham. That's a Batman family anthology. And then you have the other Batman anthology. I can't even remember what it's called. And now this is a third. This one being digital first.
Well, yeah, because you have Black and White. You have what is that the new one that's going to have the Zdarsky story, and it's the Streets of Gotham, right? Something like that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Ugh, God. And don't get me wrong. I mean, like it's kind of ironic that I'm kind of ing about this because, well, yeah, that and just because I'm not picking up many of DC's mainline books, and the only ones that are like remotely grabbing my attention are the anthology stories. But like even then it's just they don't have a good finger on when they're oversaturating a market, i.e.
two Joker books. Whatever.
Literally nobody. Well, no, I don't want to say nobody asked for it because there are plenty of people, unfortunately, that asked for it. But yeah, what I don't get, what I think is so funny is like how much they're trying to push Wonder Woman and how abysmal Wonder Woman's like financial track record is in comics. I mean, it's not even funny. Like the only Wonder Woman story that is really, really, really sold in the last couple of years was that one shot anthology. I think it was for her 80th anniversary or something like that. What was it? I don't even remember what it was called.
Issue 750.
Yeah, that was it. And that's only because there were an ass ton of incentive covers for retailers. So like,
one for each
aside from maybe like the Wonder Woman Dead Earth, which definitely has a cult following behind it. When's the last time Wonder Woman sold?
Yeah, I mean, I tried there at various times. I've tried to get into Wonder Woman, and it always falls short. Like I was super excited for the Mariko Tamaki run, and I touted it. The first issue I thought was great. Mikkel Yanin art. Mikkel left after only 3 issues, and the story went in the toilet, and it was not good. And I felt bad for telling people this is going to be the greatest era of Wonder Woman, and she just made me look like an idiot.
And they canceled the CW. The CW show they were going to have Wonder Girl. They canceled that, or they put a kibosh on that. So
yeah, well that was the Nubia. They didn't pick up the pilot.
Yeah, I don't know if that was. I don't know. Was that the Nubia one?
Yeah, it was the Nubia. Yeah, it was the Nubia one.
Yeah.
They just didn't pick up the pilot for whatever reason, and there were some big creative names behind that. Is their name? I always get it. I always mispronounce it. Ava DuVernay, the writer. Ava. She's doing the Fourth World movie with Tom King. She was involved.
The writer. She was the writer.
Yeah, she was involved. She was either the writer or producer.
Oh, that's a bad sign. That's a bad sign for the New Gods movie. I tell you what. Because I mean, if you're not picking up a pilot, I mean, you know how bad that Wonder Woman pilot was. I mean, if you're not picking up a pilot, imagine how bad that must have sucked. I mean, I'm not to be a cynic, but that's not a good sign. I don't think that's a good sign at all.
Yeah. But also, you guys are getting a little correction in the chat. It was a Yara Floor show, not a Nubia show.
Oh, that's right, Yara Floor. Yeah. My mistake. Yeah.
But here's the thing. I so far I have been pleasantly surprised with Yara Floor in Future State. But even then, how good of an idea is that to throw an untested character immediately onto the screen and announce it before the character ever sees print?
You know what? I could be wrong. Hold on. It might be Ava that's involved in Naomi.
I think she's involved in Naomi.
But I remember seeing Wonder Woman not picked up. Okay, my bad. It's somebody named Dalen Rodriguez. That's who I saw on Twitter. She was the
Right.
one that put it out, saying, "Yeah, Wonder Girl. Some sad news for all those asking. Wonder Girl is not picked up by the CW. I was very proud of the script I wrote. Wish I could have shared the world I created, but unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. Thanks for everyone's enthusiasm. It meant a lot to me." So I don't follow this person on Twitter, but I think Ava retweeted this tweet, and that's why I thought it was.
Oh, okay.
I thought it
Which
was
is
Ava, so.
which is interesting because the CW puts out a lot of shit. So if they reject your pilot,
Yeah.
what's going on? I mean, you know, it could have been something else, but the CW has put out some serious garbage over the last couple of years, and that's as as somebody who was a religious follower of the CW Arrow stuff for the first couple of years.
I still haven't watched it. I've seen like the first 6 issues of the first season of Arrow, and I haven't gone back and seen it. Someday I will.
I mean, I openly admit to enjoying like the first 2 seasons of Arrow, even though you know, I'm a Batman fan, so I loved seeing Batman as Ollie Queen. And the first couple seasons of The Flash were great, and then it just fell down a rabbit hole of how do we make everybody but Barry really great, and have every villain be faster than him or have him lose his speed.
Yeah, Manny gets mad because, you know, at the beginning of every Flash episode, he says, "My name's Barry Allen, and I'm the fastest man alive." Manny gets mad every time. He's like, except he's never the fastest. I'm the 37th fastest man alive because everybody on the show is faster than me.
You know what I always love too? It's like half the time, like they open the episode. Flash goes to stop the villain. Villain knocks Flash down. Villain gets away. You're the fastest man alive. Who's stopping you from catching the villain? Laziness?
Yep, that's a bad writing.
Yeah, I don't know. I never watched a single episode. So, how about if we go down the list of titles and talk about what, like, who we'd want to see and what kind of story, like what creators and what we'd want to see.
Yeah, and what's interesting here, and I actually kind of want to go back to a comment from Hawk World as we do go into it, is that DC has been teasing the JSA for a while now in so many different capacities, between Doomsday Clock, Death Metal, Hawkman. I mean, I'm sure there's more. When are we actually getting a JSA book? Because a lot of us have sort of been speculating that Venditti's dream project that he had been referring to might have been a JSA book. Now we pretty much know that it was that Superman 78 book.
Yeah.
But like, do we see a JSA book anytime in the next 2 years?
I don't know. Here's the problem now with the JSA book. They've been teasing it for so long, like you said, and I feel like kind of the same way I feel about Batman 3 Jokers. When it takes so long to come out, people's expectations go up and up and up. And can it possibly like live up now to, you know, what people are expecting? You know, and if it's not Jeff Johns on JSA with, you know, Gary Frank art and the best thing ever, that could turn a lot of people off to it.
Well, I know that they're Alan Scott, the Green Lantern. He's going to be coming out as gay and have twin sons, and that's teased into coming out or is that coming out in a Flash comic in June or July? So I'm pretty sure
I'm hearing something about that. I thought that's the story of that's going to start in the Infinite Frontier Zero, because I know there's an Alan Scott story.
Oh, that's right. So maybe that'll lead to, well, I don't know. Maybe you would think that would lead into JSA something, but what are they going to do with Alan Scott if he's not going to be on JSA? So what title is he going to be in after Infinite Frontier Zero? Anyways.
Well, they did announce that there's going to be an Infinite Frontier #1 now. So.
Oh, great. Another book not to care about.
Right.
So excited. Yeah, I mean, you know that like they're just going for clicks. You know what I mean? Like I felt like back in the sort of early stages of the New 52 when they did the Earth 2 book and they made the sort of new young version of Alan Scott Gay, like it felt creatively inspired. It felt different. It felt like they were actually trying to chart a course for this sort of more modernized this sort of more modernized Jay Garrick and JSA. But now, what's like inspiring you now? Clicks? Desperation?
I don't know. Throw everything at the wall and see what sticks.
It's freaking insane. And what's funny, Taylor makes a pretty interesting comment here. So how many of these books are going to be written by Joshua Williamson? He said to have 6 projects and only 2 of them have been announced. Aside from the fact that for whatever reason, DC is giving Joshua Williamson a lot of work and a lot of creative control, which is like utterly frightening, if I'm to be honest with you. But I wonder how many of the books that are even just listed here, Joshua Williamson will be working on. For my money, I think the most likely to see Williamson on is Batman and Robin after he gets off this little Robin book stint, because there's no way it's going to last long because nobody actually cares about Robin except for me. Maybe the DC Vampires thing, because I know he's really creatively deprived and likes to take things that other people set up and just kind of put it in a new color. So, takes Jeff Johns' multiple lantern spectrum, does the stupid thing with the Flash. Now you have Tom Taylor's really successful Deceased. Let's do it with vampires. So I could see him on those 2 books. What about you guys?
Middle Ages, I could see him doing something there. Definitely Robin and Batman. Those are the 2 that jump out. I think Elseworlds, it might be, different creators, just depending on, coming in, pitching a story. That almost feels like, okay, let's do a what if book. So I would think a different creative team each time.
Yeah, he did mention Aquaman too. He mentioned that he has an Aquaman story that he might tell one day, but I got the sense that he wasn't going to be telling it anytime soon, but that he did have one in mind.
Yeah, could be Elseworld. But before we even get into this, we should be talking about you guys buying DC Comics, right? You're putting in your $25 million along with the other investors. We heard about the rumor earlier this week. There's a bunch of fans with deep pockets that are all buying DC Comics.
Yeah, they're all brain dead if they think that DC is going to let a bunch of people go around and do stuff with their characters and have it reflect on their money making movie properties.
I wouldn't be surprised. It would be a contract. I mean, I don't expect it to happen, but at the same time, it wouldn't be surprising to me. I mean, AT&T, all they hear is, hey, you're going to give us $500 million to license our comics. Okay. And we still do everything else. Like that's just for the comics. These people would come in and just make comics, and they would be, they would let it be known, hey, comics are its own completely separate thing from movie and TV development, stories we tell on TV, that whole thing. And I'm sure that Warner Brothers would have some kind of final veto. Hey, if you try to do something in a comic that we don't like, we can, call you out on it and make you stop. Basically, it'd be kind of like when Lucasfilm and Disney first started working together, where the executives at Lucasfilm had some veto power.
Well, you got to look at it this way, I think, or at least I do. ATT, they come in and they lay off a third of DC's staff and a whole slew of others. They upset the apple cart, and lo and behold, talk of licensing the people licensing their characters out. Is that really that much of a stretch? I don't think so. I would actually, it's not like a lot of people buy comics anyway. And if the price is high enough and a Kirkman and Steve Geppi want to get together and pool their resources and do it, I actually believe the rumor that they did float the idea out, and they were probably curious to see what the bids would be. So I believe the gossip, because I think, and I would actually be impressed if AT&T did that, because that meant that they swallowed their pride and their ego and said, look, we don't know what the hell we're doing. Why don't we just admit it and license this shit out? I mean, let's, if something looks and quacks like a duck, just admit you're a goddamn duck and move on with it. Give it to somebody else that knows what they're doing.
Yeah, if Pamela, as long as it gets Pamela Lyford off of the decision-making process for comics, I'm all for it. I too believe it. There were people that came in and did a tour of the offices at Burbank, 2 different groups, from my understanding. So, yeah, do I think it'll actually happen? I kind of don't. I think I'd give it like maybe a 30% chance of succeeding, because probably Warner Brothers is going to, AT&T, I should say, the AT&T corporate overlords are going to put too many restrictions on it, and people that are fans of these characters, that they're not coming at this as, hey, we're gonna get rich. They're already disgustingly rich. These people that are putting in the money. they're coming in as, hey, we're fans of DC and we want the books to be better. But if AT&T is putting too many restrictions on it and they feel like they can't tell good stories, then why should they bother? It's just going to make them look. All it does is shift the blame for bad comics from AT&T to this new group. Why would they want to do that? They can just go out and start their own publishing group, hire their own creators, do whatever. They can go over and work with Todd McFarlane and help create the Spawn universe.
Yeah. Spawn universe. Oh boy.
Spawn titles coming out.
Yeah, I know. I saw that and I'm like, oh, cool.
I feel like driving, he doesn't live too far away from me. I feel like driving over to his place, knocking on his door and going, Todd, let's sit down and talk, man. Give me the lowdown. Because if you've ever met Todd, if anybody in the chat has ever met Todd, there's one thing that guy likes to do.
Talk about Spawn? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. He'll talk your ear off. It's funny.
Yeah.
You ask one question and you just sit back with a mic in the face and he's gold, man. He'll go for an hour.
Yeah, no, he's a good guy. I'm all in on Todd McFarlane as an institution, not so much Spawn. Like I kind of desperately wanted to get into Spawn, and I think I read like the first like story arc, and it was horrible. But I love Todd. I love Todd as an institution. I think Todd.
But if you read the things that he said, that's what he wants. He's like, okay, yes, these are going to be Spawn or Spawn adjacent titles to start with, but he wants to bring in creators to tell their own stories and create their own characters, and then those characters go out and get their own titles, and then they have characters that debut in those. So he's talking about building a universe. Not that everything is derivative of Spawn, but they just happen to share the same universe as Spawn. He wants other characters that are completely unrelated to Spawn. Now, whether or not that can happen in this day and age, that's another story altogether.
Yeah,
yeah.
Sure.
I love the different action figures of Spawn, and I got some classic ones from back in the day in a toy box somewhere, and I don't mind it, but I have to admit right now, whenever I think of Spawn and I think of Spawn, Gunslinger Spawn, and all the different types of Spawn, it doesn't really appeal to me, because I think of the Batman. I think of death metal and 1,000 different clones of Batman, and I think it's ridiculous. Like I want to, let's go buy guns. Oh, I want to read a story about Gunslinger Spawn or something else Spawn or Mary Poppins Spawn or something. It's just I don't know. It's just the whole concept is just, it just never really appealed to me.
Boom, that you would buy the die cut foil glow in the dark variant of Mary Poppins Spawn if there was such a thing.
I probably would.
You'd probably buy 5 copies, knowing you.
I might even have my.
Yeah, it'd be like one copy to read, 1 copy for the wall, 1 copy for him to speculate, 1 copy for his daughter to speculate on, and then another copy just to round it all out to 5.
Oh, you would be proud of me today, Boom. I spent $150 on 2 books. Total not my thing that I normally do at all. So I own 1 slabbed comic. And it's a 9.6 of Exo Manowar #1. And the only reason I bought it is because I got it for $15.
Wow.
Less than the cost of at the actual slabbing. But
wow.
Skybound had their Comic Expo thing today. They had a couple of books on there that I liked, and this is like pure speculation. They're both 9.8s. So in celebration of releasing the Invincible trailer today, people have been talking about in the chat, Skybound came out with a red foil variant cover of Invincible #1. So the title Invincible is in red foil. So I got a 9.8 of that for $75. The other thing I got that they released, there was 225 of them, and at 9.8, and it sold out in 3 minutes. It's a radiant black foil cover by Tyler Kirkham, and it sold out in 3. I mean, radiant black is hot. We know. I don't know if it'll actually live up to the hype or not, and maybe some of the hype is spec. People are thinking of it as the next Invincible, and you can't get a #1 of Invincible for less than like $800, and maybe they're hoping. So I just wanted to support, Kyle, and I like the book. I'm a fan. The team, I think, did a great job. It's a gorgeous cover, and it wasn't real money because I used to use PayPal from other comics I'd sold, and just. But I thought of you while I was doing it. Boom! I'm like, man, here I am buying a couple slabs, and yeah, maybe I'll sell my Radiant Black someday, and buy a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle or something.
if you
Radiant Black into a bottle of nice bourbon.
If you do, let me know so I can pick up a plane ticket to Arizona.
For sure.
No, it's what's going on like with the state of the comic book industry is so hectic and chaotic, and it seems like for better or for worse that indie is just making it out on top. I mean, you're talking about Radiant Black, Invincible's getting its own show, and it was already. I mean, I don't even want to say that it had a cult following. It had a massive following in the community, as evident by an $800 first issue. So, we're in a really weird spot, and I, like Mark, I don't blame you for dropping Titans Academy, my guy. If you go check out Jace's podcast, Boom and I have been kind of guest spotting over there on Future State Fridays, and we have had absolutely nothing positive to say about that writer, the writer who's doing Titans Academy, his work on the Future State Titans. It's been pretty bad. And I had actually put Titans Academy on my pull list only to take it down a month later. So if it's any consolation from us, I think you made a great financial and mental decision.
The tragic thing about the Titans Academy, that whole Teen Titans story leading a Future State Teen Titans story, which blends into Future State Shazam, which blends into Future State
Flash,
which blends into Future State Justice League in the 1 million, like in the far future, because it's all part of the unkindness, and
that all bleeds into my trash can, so it's just getting hectic.
But what's funny is that I will say this: there's a crisis level, epic level story there to be told that had it been allowed to maybe develop organically, could have been a much more satisfying experience. And I say that we're not even done reading it yet, but it is, it's just sad. I could see how it could be good, but it's the funniest comment, or I found it ironic that there was a comment made by another friend of mine on YouTube on the Slack, and he made the comment that the irony with Future State and the frustrating thing about Future State is that so many of the Future State books consists of flashbacks. You notice that? Like, I mean, they take place in the future, but so many of them have flashbacks into the present, and it's like, well, why didn't you just tell a story in the present? Why, and even some of them, why are you calling them Future State to begin with? Because they seem a little bit out of place. And so, like the Wonder Woman one, for example, as much as I love Jodie Belair, and Joelle Jones, great job on the Future State Wonder Woman, but it didn't even need to be called Future State. That could have just been an Elseworld story, or just a story of an adult Wonder Woman. It's just, the whole thing seems like the plan doesn't really seem there. It's like, there's little groups and pieces of greatness there and potential really good stuff, but it's like being put in a room with a bunch of toys, and there's a really great toy in the room, but there's 1,000 toys, and you don't know where the good one is. You know what I mean? And it takes time to find it. That's the problem with Future State and DC right now. A lot of this stuff probably is good, but we're not given enough direction, and the marketing is terrible. I mean, it's pretty bad when I collect comics and I got to get Jace to send me the link to Comics Pro and the marketing and what's coming up. And I don't know. It's frustrating.
Yeah. So today's Future State Friday does have the second issue of Teen Titans that we talked about last week, which it was tough. But I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Boom. A lot of this stuff, we look at the list of books that came out from Comics Pro today. It has potential. It goes back to what I said at the beginning. But they got to be good stories. You got to have good creators. You got to have good artists. You got to have good writers. It's got to be done and the right way. It's got to be good. Otherwise, like I went all in on Future State. I was trying to support DC. I wanted it to be good. I don't want to read shitty comics.
Yeah.
They're just not good. Like, what am I supposed to do?
That's how they got a lot of us fun-loving DC fans. I mean, Jesus. I'm the prickliest bunch of all of us, and I definitely dropped some decent coin on the beginning of Future State, thinking, you know, I'm desperate for a change. I haven't loved what DC's been doing for a couple years. This seems like something new, something different, new voices which I've always been a proponent of. And then I get burned and I hate it. I mean, you can't, I don't think, can we really count 5 DC Future State books that I've had a nice thing to say about? Or 5 DC Future State stories that I've had a nice thing to say about on Future State Fridays? I don't think so. Honestly.
Aquaman,
Catwoman,
Nightwing.
That's it. 4.
That's it. That's sad. That's sad. I mean,
best ones. Like, it's not.
Well, I would probably add. I could hit 5, but I mean.
Well, yeah, but you're a simp for DC Comics. So.
But I mean, there is a lot more than 5 stories being told. But
there's what I mean. But if you count all the stories and not just like the completed books, there's probably somewhere between 30 and 40 stories.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nuts. And one thing I did want to bring up, Tevye Smoka has an interesting question regarding the little press release we just read. Do we think that Deathstroke Inc. will be similar to Batman Inc.? I mean, probably. Usually when they try to evoke something like that with a sort of paraphrase or something of that nature, usually they're trying to rip off of something that people already kind of loved. I'm sure it'll have its own sort of different workings, but generally, yeah, I assure you that Deathstroke is probably going to set up his own network of assassins that all I bet you it'll be like Deathstroke, but a pyramid scheme. That's it.
Well, the first thing I thought when I saw Deathstroke Inc. was thinking back to the Christopher Priest run when there was that team where they were trying to actually be heroes.
Oh, the Foundation or something like that?
Yeah. So that was the first thing I thought. So I wonder if they might, I mean, they always try to tread that fine line with Deathstroke, you know, going the Harley Quinn route where he's kind of an anti-hero. And I've been racking my brain trying to think, man, who would I want to write that title and what artist would I want on it? And I can't, like, there's no writer that like jumps up other than just writers that I think can write anything, like a Brian Edward Hill, you know, I think would be good on that title. But there's nobody like current, you know, that's current at DC or that's not writing anything at DC where I'd be like, oh, they're the perfect person. I do think like a Robson Roca
would draw the hell out of it.
Yeah, could draw the hell out of it. Or who's the other? Rafa Sandoval. I think would be another one that could do a really great job. I mean, if you want to go back and pull an artist that was on Deathstroke when Priest was on it, Carlo Pagulian did a great job, I thought, when he was on that title. And I even think bringing Priest back wouldn't be a bad idea. But knowing him, he's probably like, been there, done that, moving on. So I don't know. I don't think Steve Orlando's doing anything for DC right now. So I guess if I had a choice, yeah, like maybe either Rafa or Robson doing the art, and then yeah, I guess Brian Edward Hill would be my choice to do that. Book.
I'd want Brian Azzarello to write Deathstroke Incorporated.
Oh, now you're going bloody and dark and.
I would. Why not? I mean, what the hell? I thought it was inspired when they put him on Wonder Woman. Who the hell would have thought to put Brian Azzarello on Wonder Woman? And well, I mean, they undid his Wonder Woman run pretty much, but I mean, it was I enjoyed it, but yeah, they need to
artist in mind.
I really, well, you know what? Hey, why not we reunite Azzarello and Edward, the same artist as Rizzo, as on 100 Bullets. Duplicate that team for Deathstroke. Do something different. I mean, and they're looking. Azzarello just gave an interview to Word Balloon, and he had indicated there that he's always looking at working again with him because they collaborate so well. So what the hell?
I love 100 Bullets and I love that pairing. But I don't know if I want Rizzo to draw like a full on like action packed book. I love Rizzo. He's great with composition and with camera, but his art style doesn't really scream like physical to me. Like, yeah, I would actually do like, I do like Azzarello. I obviously love Hill. And I would merge what you two have there and say Azzarello and Carlo Pagulian. I think it'd be a great pairing. But I'm not really mad at any of those choices. I'm a fan of Eduardo Rizzo, so it's not like if they announced him on the book that I wouldn't pick it up because I would. But just based on my sort of understanding of his artwork, I don't know if he would be the best fit for it, but it seems kind of interesting. Although, admittedly, I think my faith in DC has been sort of plummeting, so I'm skeptical now of even books that seem interesting in concept.
Yeah.
But we haven't even gotten like a legitimate concept. We're just speculating. So who knows? Maybe it
All
could
right.
be
Well,
something worth getting.
next on the list is Harley Quinn animated series sequel.
I don't recall the first one. They're talking about the cartoon, right? Or that's not. Are they talking about a comic?
The R-rated cartoon. They're going to do a comic that ties into it. So I think the perfect writer, and I defy anybody to say this isn't the perfect choice for a writer. Put Mark Russell on it, and either Stephen Byrne or John Timms on art. Because Timms, he was the guy that would fill in when Chan Harden needed a break on the Palmiotti Connor run, and he did a great job. So yeah, Mark Russell and either John Timms or Stephen Byrne.
Yeah, I don't care about this book. I don't. I enjoyed the first season of the animated show. I thought it was really quite good. It knew what it was trying to be and didn't try to be anything else, and that was part of what made it so great. And then season 2 was like, yeah, we see that success we're having there. Let's just do that, but like times 5. And it's bound to be better. And it ended up being kind of hokey. But
I don't know if. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying. So point blank is that like this project draws almost no interest from me. If you had Mark Russell on it, I might be tempted to like consider not throwing it away immediately. But like until then, not for me.
I don't mind. I don't mind Mark Russell. I actually don't mind his work. He's good at satire. Times for some reason I view it as that I would hope that would be Black Label, and I think Mark Russell is. I don't know if he's hardcore enough. I view the Harley Quinn animated series being a little bit more hardcore than that. Is also the Bruce or the John Tim on art. I really don't like his art. I think that artistically that I don't think that would work for me. That I would want a style more beholden to the series.
Like your favorite Peach Momoko?
Riley Rossmo? Oh wait, you have that in the regular. Harley.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying like well actually whenever I think of Harley Quinn animated, I always think of Bruce Timm, not John Tim. I think of Bruce Timm, and I would love to get Bruce Timm back. Bruce Timm drawing it, but would Bruce Timm agree to draw Harley Quinn a little bit more hardcore with swearing? He probably wouldn't, but
he wouldn't agree to draw a monthly book unless you were paying him like $1,000 an issue or something.
Well, fair enough, but I mean, maybe they should consider doing that because they certainly they've cut third of their editorial staff. They could probably afford it.
All right, who's writing it for Bruce Timm, or is he writing and drawing it?
Oh man.
If you really want to go R-rated, you just bring back Jimmy and Amanda.
Yeah, I think, but I'm so used to Jimmy and Amanda's. They're working on Red Sonja right now, and I kind of like them on that. They're, Amanda O'Connor is actually doing the writing with Jimmy, so I don't know. I'd have to think on that. I don't know. I don't think you need it to be funny. And whoever's writing the show, maybe whoever's writing the actual show, get them to write the comic.
Yeah.
Because they do a good job on the show, but I don't know who's writing the show. I'd have to Google that.
All right. Well, next up on the list is Elseworld, which we can probably skip because I think we all kind of agree that's just like it's a different creative team, kind of like a what if, just depends on the story. DC Vampires working title next. I don't. Can I get like Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson? Unfortunately, one with us anymore. I don't know who. Well, I mean, I'm trying to think of
you're forgetting like the team behind the DC Vampire book. You can do Doug Mensch and Kelly Jones.
I'm not a big fan of Kelly Jones. I mean, if we're not trying to think of people that are necessarily like involved with DC, then you get anybody, and you put on like Garth Ennis and God, who is this artist? Like Simon Kradansky would be.
Oh yeah. Simon's
did
great.
Black Eyed Kids, that horror title that he did for Aftershock was super creepy. So yeah, I mean, you want to talk about like vampires, and if you're going to go back and explore, the past, the 40s and 30s and stuff like that. I mean, Ennis, for me, he would be the guy for sure.
Yeah, I don't have no idea what they're talking about. DC vampires. I got to tell you, I got absolutely no interest in that at all. As a concept, I think I don't know why they would think that's a good idea. What am I supposed to be interested in all the DC heroes being blood sucking vampires? Is that? I mean, where'd they get that idea from? Like, is it from the multiverse? Like, there's that one planet where Batman is, from the Elseworld story. Like, maybe they want to do that, and it's taking place on that Earth. I mean, okay, I guess, but I gotta say, I'm a little bit surprised by that. I don't find it to be a very good idea. I would need more information about it. How is it different than? Because I love Scott Snyder's American Vampire. It's on its second last series. I love I've read every issue. I love it. It's great. That's a great vampire book. DC vampire in general, that's too general for me. I need more information.
I think like Trevor was saying earlier, is it DC going, well, look, we did DC zombies and we called it Deceased and it was gangbusters. Maybe DC vampires is the same thing, but instead of zombies with the anti-life equation, you're doing vampires. It's going to be Tom Taylor writing it and Trevor Hairsine drawing it.
Dude, I love Tom Taylor. If Tom Taylor did a DC vampires, I would probably be disappointed and see it as a total cop out. I mean, like, I don't know. Like it would, how, and I invite Tom Taylor to prove me wrong if you were writing that book, because I love him so very much. But I mean, even the second DC series had I think a pretty significant dip in quality. It's not bad, but it's certainly not as good as the first. So what now? You kind of twist the idea ever so slightly and go from zombies to vampires. Okay, so what? Their vampires have the omega or the whatever, the anti-life equation, and when they prick it in you get turned into an anti-life vampire, and you have to draw more people into the anti-life. Okay, cool. I don't know. I mean, or hear me out. I wouldn't be surprised if DC Vampires was an anthology series where people just tell these offhand DC vampire stories taking place in that Earth in the multiverse where everybody is vampires.
Maybe. I guess we'll wait.
Listen, I'm not saying it's going to be good. I'm just saying it might happen.
You know what's funny? So you all just watched a meeting of DC's editorial team trying to figure out what the hell DC Vampires is because they don't even know. Yes, what if we do that? They're throwing ideas out left and right. Sure. Robin and Batman is the next one that's listed. I don't have anything to say. There's more than enough Batman books, and everybody's told a Batman story at this point. I got nothing. I don't need any more Batman. I got nothing for this one.
It's probably Williamson. I can almost guarantee you that it's Williamson. He'll be coming off his poorly received Batman Superman book. And this new Robin series for however long that's going to be, that will inevitably fail because, again, nobody's going to buy a Robin book.
Do you guys think it might be Robin and Batman because it's Robin having more experience and this is actually like Jace Fox Batman? That would make sense why they put Robin first.
Maybe, but I don't. If that's the case, I honestly don't think that John Ridley's like follow-up series is going to sell well, except for maybe the first issue, because I think people bought the Future State books and pre-ordered them because it was something different and new, and obviously speculating on a Black Batman. But like after that hype is dead, and now that I haven't heard anybody whose opinions I respect say anything too grand about the next Batman, so I don't see it being successful enough for another spinoff, but you could be right.
Yeah. I think DC, they kind of effed over Ridley. You know, he probably had this idea, let me just give me a monthly book and I'm going to tell my next Batman story. Instead, it's like, okay, some of it's going to be over here in the next Batman and Future State, and then some of it's over here in this digital series, and then, you know, Son of Batman and whatever the other title is. And all of a sudden, everything's all disjointed. Like, just give me a book and let me tell my story, in a linear fashion, and bring in all the stuff with the family or whatever, instead of jumping around in the timeline and trying to tell the story. And I'm not saying that if they had given it to him to tell in a more conventional way that it would have been any better than it is now, but they certainly didn't do him any favors the way they pulled the rug out from under him and restructured a bunch of things.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong, man. There's just no way to get a finger on the pulse of anything, because DC doesn't even have a pulse. Like, they are dead in the water right now, scrambling to find their way back up.
You got anything to say about Robin and Batman, Rocky?
Sorry, guys. I think I can only imagine it's misdirection. Calling it Robin and Batman. I'm sorry. Honestly, I'm tempted to be such a smartass right now, but I just think this whole list, frankly, for them to come out with this just seems so absolutely random that it's virtually meaningless to me, to be really honest. I mean, this could mean anything, this stuff. Yeah. I mean, they're throwing out working titles here. I mean, look, if you haven't even made a decision yet, like, is that how you do business now? If you come up with ideas, I mean, aren't you supposed to have a summit and keep it secret and then come out with the idea when you've actually have a plan?
Yeah, that's how they used to do it.
Come on, like,
Nancy Spears wrote this list, just pulled it out of her ass over her morning coffee.
Yeah. How about it, instead of calling it Batman and Robin, we change the logo to Robin and Batman?
Dude, that would blow people away.
Yeah, that's great. And then Robin will be like, that'll be like the name of like the chick that he picks up on the street, and she'll be like a prostitute and stuff. And her name will be Robin, and that'll be the new sidekick. How's that?
I was really hoping you'd land a really great joke when you were turned off to the side and you're like, Rocky, what do you think? And I was waiting for you to go, oh, I was busy drinking my cup of I don't give a fuck. Like, I've been like, I've said this before. I've been scrambling for a Damian Robin book for forever.
You have it.
Yeah, I do. And it's gonna be in my trash can. It's gonna be sitting in my trash can, and all I want is to put it on my shelf.
What if it's the best thing that Williamson ever does in his entire comic career?
I mean, he's done like two good things. He's done like two.
Even a broken watch is right twice a day. I said even a broken watch is right twice a day. So Joker, a puzzle box. I gotta think this is some kind of one shot or whatever, but when I hear that title, you know what I really want? I want a book that has like a bunch of cool Joker pinups from a bunch of classic artists, Lee Bermejo and Jim Lee and Liam Sharp and, just everybody, a whole who's who, Bill Sienkiewicz, all those guys. And then have it be an activity book with like connect the dots, some mazes, some coloring pages. Because the last thing I want or will buy or will read is a Joker book. So I don't really have much to say about Joker, a puzzle box.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna follow hypothetical Rocky's lead and sip my cup of I don't give a fuck.
Rocky, anything to say about
a puzzle box? A puzzle box? Well, I mean that. And it's another Joker story. I mean, thank God we have another Joker story. What would we do? I mean, we've been crying for another Joker story. We just don't get enough of that guy. So, I mean, again, it could be great. I mean, but again, it's another one of these things. I don't know if the purpose was of this DC Comics Pro virtual presentation was to tease us. This. To me, just saying a name isn't much of a tease. Like I don't know. Like I mean,
well, the fact is, it's not even a tease for us, the fans. This is what they told retailers. Like, if you're a retailer, you got to be saying, "What in the absolute hell are you talking?" Like, it's one thing to try to sell it to fans to get us excited, Retailers are putting their livelihood on the line for these books, and you've told me nothing. No creative teams, no artwork.
Yeah,
Like,
this is just it's nonsense. It really is. I mean, it's just total nonsense. But I mean, we're sitting here. I mean, we're all of us are seasoned readers here, and we say that with no ego. I say it with a little bit of ego. I've had a couple of drinks in me, but I don't know what some of this shit is. I mean, I can make
I agree. I agree. We know what Legend of Batman is. It's basically Legends of the Dark Knight again. It's an anthology series. You're going to bring on creators. They're going to tell an arc starting with Derek Robertson. It could be good. I might. That's something I might pick up based on who the creator is, because that's when Legend. Now, this is not how Legends of the Dark Knight ended up. It ended up just being the 4th Batman title. But when it started off, it was like, okay, this creative group telling, or this creative team telling this 4-issue story or 3-issue story. And we got some great ones, like Venom is one of my favorites from that time period. So hopefully they stick with that, and it doesn't just become another Batman book the way the Legends of the Dark Knight did back in the day, where it was just telling regular Batman stories. It wasn't these self-contained arcs by a certain creative team, and then a new creative team would come on. So based on the creative team, I may pick up Legend of Batman, on a case-by-case basis per story.
I'm already reading 5 other Batman anthologies, so I don't know if I have any more room.
Fair enough.
I mean, like it'd have to be somebody pretty phenomenal, like writing that with Derek Robinson for me to do it. And
he's writing and drawing it.
Oh,
yeah.
Now I really don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, this is his first writing gig, so.
I wish my first writing gig was on Batman, but hey.
Right. I've always thought that one of a story that they should pursue with Batman is, and they've done the occasional story from time to time, but I think it should be a series, and they should show Batman the untold tales of Batman, or Bruce Wayne, the untold tales of Batman, or the early years, and literally have an entire 24-issue story, or just have a series of Bruce Wayne's travels when he left Gotham and he came back 10 years later. Tell the story of that 10 years. We know some of who his teachers were, but we don't know all of them. I think we could get. I think it would be very, very interesting to get into with the travels of Bruce Wayne in that time period. And I think it's an untapped resource myself. But
yeah, we could get more Ghostmaker.
Oh boy,
whatever, anybody, exactly, whoever. I mean, I just think it's ripe with possibility, but I don't know. That's me.
In all selfishness, I don't want to see that because I already have a pitch for it. So I'm hoping it'll be hanging. I'm telling you, wouldn't you read a miniseries called Bruce Wayne: The Long Road Home, and written by yours truly? That'd be pretty damn good.
I'm not in love with the title, but I'd probably still pick it up.
We can workshop it, All right. Listen. If DC can workshop titles in the public eye, I think if I can do it 5 years ahead of time, I think we're good.
Yep. Next on the list is Crush and Lobo. I don't like Lobo. I don't really know Crush. I know she's Lobo's daughter, lesbian daughter, or something like that.
Yeah.
So I have nothing to say about this book. I won't buy it. I won't read it. Doesn't matter who's writing it or who's drawing it. So I got nothing.
Let me tell you the potential, what they should do if they had half a brain in their head, but they're not going to do this. Crush is Lobo had sex with Harley Quinn in the pages of Harley Quinn Black Book, Harley Quinn's Black Book issue 5.
Gotcha.
It was Harley Quinn and Lobo got naked. They did the nasty, and rumor has it that the offspring of them was Crush, and that Harley Quinn is actually Crush's daughter, or pardon me, Crush is Harley Quinn's daughter. And now I don't know if it's true or not, but you could tease that. They should tease that. They should build that up. Crush is a character that she's clearly got daddy issues, as you can imagine. I think she's an interesting character. She's diverse. She's gay. She hits all the high notes. Plus, because she's got that alien factor in her and that Caesarian DNA in her, she can be a badass and an asshole all she wants, and she's got the excuse for it. She can be crazy because there would always be hints as, is Harley her mom? Is Harley her mom? Is she ever going to meet Harley? Is she ever going to confront Harley? Is she can go on a mom quest? It could be a fun series if they do that right. Now, are they going to do that? I don't know, but that would be my pitch.
Yeah, that sounds like a good way to sort of fill in the gap. I was reading Teen Titans when they introduced Crush, and I think she was a fairly interesting character. Or Crush and Lobo, something that I care to read about? Not really. Well, could it be like a really fun like twist on the buddy cop type thing, but both of them are douchebags? Yeah, that could be a lot of fun. Creatively uninspired, but a lot of fun. But it's not like creatively uninspired has not been the name of DC's game for this last little while, so that could be par for the course. I just don't care. I'm willing to have a great writer and artist team to come along and make me care. I would love for that to happen. Really anywhere in the DC universe right now, but it just nobody asked for it, and I'm not saying that you always need to give people what they ask for. In fact, I think that it doesn't work out that well most of the time, but I don't know where they're coming from with this, and I think this is one of the many titles on that list that are indicative of well, if maybe a couple of you tweet it, maybe this will happen, and if it doesn't, well, then it's just another flash in the pan, like dozens of other books they've talked about these last couple of years that never materialized.
I don't know how you put out a Crush and Lobo book and we don't even have an Aquaman book.
Yeah, I should say though, I should say that with Crush and Lobo, I think that it would be the only title in that list that was in space. I mean, potentially, I suppose Elseworlds could be too, but I mean, Crush and Lobo is always going from planet to planet, and maybe Crush would join him and have a mommy, a daddy daughter, jaunt around the galaxy or something. So I don't know. It has potential there. In fact, if I had to be blunt and say, okay, which one would I pick? Am I most interested in this Dog's Breakfast? I would probably pick out Crush and Lobo as being the one I would probably go with, and I'm a gambling man. I would bet on that one.
Nah, for me, it's the next one. It's Nubia and the Amazons. If you get L.L. McKinney to write it, because I really liked what she did in the two issues that she got, the 40 pages she got with Nubia in Future State. And I think Aletha Martinez did fine with the art, but I think somebody who could do even better would be Adriana Mello. I think she's an artist that could really put her stamp on Nubia. So that's what I would like to see. And if it's not and it's somebody else, I'll still give it a try because I do think Nubia has a lot of untapped potential. But I'd nope out of it pretty quickly if whoever comes on just throws out the characterization that LL was already establishing in these two Future State books. If they just go their own direction, I probably won't be interested. So
I haven't read this week's Future State yet, but I wasn't impressed with LL's interpretation in the first Nubia story. I'm all in on having a non-Diana Wonder Woman at this point, whether it's Yara or Nubia, as long as they're done well, because Diana, when's the last time Diana had a really good feature that felt true to her core? I mean, again, even the Dead Earth was it was cool and it was crazy and it was a lot of fun, but is that your traditional Diana? Not really. So they had to make some pretty extreme changes to her character in order to make her appealing, which is unfortunate. I wouldn't say I'm excited for Nubia, but given the right creative team, you certainly wouldn't have to pull my arm to go pick it up. So, I'm for it. This is one of the few on this list that I'm not actively making fun of. So I guess that's a good sign.
I like Nubia. I enjoyed like Jace. I do enjoy the Future State Nubia. I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the personality of Nubia as well. I really like Yara Flora. I like Nubia. I like this focus of focusing on different Amazons. I really like the fact that they're not just building the Wonder Woman family, but the Amazonian tribes. We basically have a Wonder Woman for every Amazonian tribe. We've got Wonder Woman from, of course, Themyscira. We've from the Brazilian Amazonian tribe. We have Yara Flor, and now we have obviously Nubia is going to be the queen of Themyscira. That's one of the teasers coming out in June. And on the second tribe of Amazons, of course, we actually have Artemis, who is part of Red Hood and the Outlaws. Now, I don't know if she's going to be around, but in any event, I like it. It's I'm looking forward to it. I hope it's good.
Yeah, talk about like super vague. DC Middle Ages, God only knows. I mean, you can do
I thought that's for me. I'm 52. I'm middle age. It must be for me, right? DC middle age, right?
Yeah, so I don't have any idea. Dan Jurgens, I guess. I mean, he's got a good understanding of DC.
Yeah, he's middle age.
I bet you it's either Dan Jurgens, Keith Giffen, or DeMatteis, or Wolfman, and it's going to be the same as that. What was that really stupid series of books by Wolfman that was made to promote that toy line? And it was like DC characters as a bunch of frosty Vikings. And that was long.
Yeah.
I bet that is exactly what this is.
I got one of those. I got one of those action figures at New York Comic Con. They handed it out at one of the panels. God, I can't remember what it was called.
It was something. I think it was I don't know. I bet you that this is what that middle age thing is. It's to promote toys or something like that. And again, I'd love to be proven wrong.
I think it's going to be like Demon Knights, isn't it? Like the new 52 Demon Knights.
And if it is, then I want some Demon Knight. I want like Bernard Chang or Diogenes Neves to draw it, because those guys were great. And hey, might as well bring Paul Cornell back. And that's where Robert Venditti did his first DC work. Actually, was on Demon Knights.
Mark McKeever in the chat says it's Warlord. That's actually a good idea to bring back Warlord in Middle Ages.
What makes me think Dan Jurgens, because that was Dan Jurgens' first work, was drawing Warlord for Mike Grell.
Plus, I have the first appearance of Warlord, so for the spec market that would be great.
Yeah, it's driving me crazy that I can't think. They were DC Comics Target exclusives, I think. Toys.
Yeah. I mean, it just I hate when that type of stuff happens. It's just not for me. It's creatively uninspired, based around a toy line to sell toys. First of all, I hated the designs of the toys anyways, so you weren't exactly winning me over. Tevia wants to know, where's my Jonathan Kent
Primal Age. That's what it was called. DC
Primal Age. That's
I'm looking at the Batman right now, and it looks real bad.
I told you.
Hold on, I gotta share my screen with you guys so you can see this.
And as you're doing that, I'll answer Tevye here. He wants to know where his Superboy John Kent book and his Tim Drake Robin book are. They are deep in the depths of your heart, my friend, because I don't think you're going to be getting those anytime soon.
Yeah. All right, can you guys see this?
Unfortunately.
Can you see this Batman that I'm sharing?
What is that?
Yeah, it's pretty atrocious.
Oh, Primal Age.
Yeah, Primal Age. So there he is. Like, he looks like some kind of a.
He looked like Danny DeVito, but ripped into the Batman suit.
Danny DeVito playing Batman. Yeah, they're bad. Only at Target, guys. Only at Target. Well, you know what? I'm glad that book is not being called DC Primal Age, because then we'd know for sure.
Well, we did get a Primal Age thing. It was written by Marv Wolfman, and it was made just to promote the toy. I was at New York Comic Con for that launch, and I remember them kind of making a show of it, and I'm like, why? Like, this is what you're promoting?
Yeah, they gave out Mr. Freeze Primal Age figures. I have one somewhere.
Oh, lucky you. You must be one proud owner of a Primal Age Mr. Freeze.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Real bad. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. Yeah.
Taylor Pector wants to know, or he says, speaking of Wonder Woman, that DeConnick Jimenez Wonder Woman Historia Black Label book is still up in the air. We still have absolutely no details on that. It's true. That was one of the first books that they announced for DC Black Label, like 3 years ago, and then Batman's pee-pee showed up, and who knows what's happening now.
Yeah, actually, I saw Phil talk about it not too long ago. He said he was still working on it. That was maybe 3 or 4 months ago. So, I mean, we know he's pretty slow, so who knows?
Yeah, I mean, this is insane, though. It's been like 4 years that he's been working on this book.
Well, look at how long Francis Manapul was working on Earth 1 Aquaman, and now we know it's not going to happen. Look at how long Jason Fabok was working on
3 Jokers.
3 Jokers.
Yeah.
And the art for that, Jimenez's art, the teaser art that he released for that, his
Looks
Wonder Woman,
gorgeous.
absolutely, it looks absolutely amazing. And DeConnick is, her story is, I hope it's going to be very good. I mean, Jimenez, who's a huge Wonder Woman fan himself, obviously he's worked on Wonder Woman before. He sure sung its praises. So, I mean, there's a lot coming out. I keep hoping and thinking that we're going to be getting all these great titles in the future. I'm still waiting for. Why didn't they mention Mark Waid's coming to write Superman? Was that a part of the DC Comics Pro tease that I missed, or
You would have heard about it.
We do know that Philip Kennedy Johnson said he's only writing both books for a short period of time, and then he's jumping off of one of them, and he's only going to be writing one. We don't know who that other writer is yet. So I don't know.
Oh, maybe it'll be Brian Michael Bendis.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. Because we would all love it if he butchered Superman, and then DC gave him Justice League and butchered Justice League, and then came back to butcher Superman some more.
Actually, if we're really lucky,
He'll butcher Batman.
If we're really lucky, it'll be Jeffrey Thorne writing Superman.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm sure he hates everybody in the Superman lineup except for John Henry Irons. So prepare to see John Henry Irons book.
There you go.
With Superman on the title.
That's a great call. Him and Lyford probably have lunch every Thursday.
Yeah, talking about their distaste of everybody except for Jon Stewart and the Teen Lantern.
That's right.
Well, at least Jeffrey Thorne, at least he's refreshing. At least he's being honest about it. I mean, wouldn't that be great if he just says, look, what? I've always hated Superman, and that's why I've always wanted to write him. And I hate Jimmy, and I really hate Lois. And I've always wanted to crack at writing them. Just give me 6 issues. That's all I need.
He'll bring back Robinson Good from the Action Comics run, and she'll be the publisher of Daily Planet, and. Yeah.
I can see how the conversation goes too. It's like, hey, I really hate Hal Jordan, so let me just take all of the Green Lanterns that aren't Hal Jordan and write them really badly, so that you that has to have been the game plan, because that's the road we're going on right now.
But you guys notice that I'm surprised that they didn't mention anything about Milestone, because I mean the Milestone is going to come out digitally. I'm surprised that they never mentioned that, because the Milestone, I thought they were really going to push that, and the fact that they never mentioned that at Comics.
Again, you bring it up. The last press release I got about Milestone stuff was along the same lines. That's the first time where I was like, man, this is the third press release I've gotten like this, and it said, we don't know the creative teams yet, other than we know Dennis Cowan is going to be doing Hardware and Icon, or Rocket and Icon, and Bill Sienkiewicz is going to be doing some covers. That's the only creators that we can say. Can't say anything else, and everything is subject to change. So these books are supposed to be coming relatively soon, and they still can't announce anything. The only thing they've announced is they're re-releasing all the old stuff digitally. And they are working on print versions of all the old stuff as well. But if you remember Milestone, it was colored a bit differently than the rest of the line. It had a distinctive look, kind of like Valiant did back in the day, where it was colored a certain way. And so they're having a hard time. They've got to go through and restore all the color, and then they'll be able to reprint the stuff. So that's why it's taken so long. They've been working on it for quite a while now. So
do you remember, Jace? You had to have been around it for that. It was 2018 New York Comic Con, and they had a full-on panel about relaunching Milestone, only to do with creative teams, books, and everything.
Mhm.
only to do absolutely nothing. I remember it was like a year ago, and somebody said something about Milestone. I was like, whatever happened to that relaunch they made a huge deal about 3 years ago?
Yeah,
Like,
they did
I
it. They
feel like
did it at San Diego first. San Diego's where they first announced that Milestone was coming back. They had Reginald Hunland there, showed up on stage. It was like it was Dan and Jim. They were on stage, and it was like this, secret panel. They didn't even say what it was going to be covering, and the room was packed. And all of a sudden, Dan's like, "We're here to announce the return of Milestone Comics," and then here came Reginald Hunland, and here came Dennis Cowan, and they had I can't remember who, Phil Lamar, who did the voice of Static Shock. He was the other guy that came on, and they, oh yeah, we're all coming back, blah 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 blah, and thought it was going to be relatively soon, and then yeah, it took forever. Now, part of it was the fact that Dwayne McDuffie, the late great, he was a founder of it as well, and his estate owned a big piece of it. And they worked all this out, and nobody ever went and talked to Dwayne McDuffie's widow. So she was like, hold on. You guys can't just, without giving Dwayne his due, Dwayne's estate is due. So that was a lot of the kind of fits and starts.
Mhm.
Once you get lawyers involved and, negotiation, going back and forth. And so that's why it's taken years. But, I mean, the fact of the matter is, if it had a driving force, if Dwayne was still around, we would have had it already. But you don't have that. Reginald Hunland's got one, he's more in the Hollywood side of things, and Dennis Cowan, for as incredible of an artist as he is, he's not a driving force to get things made the way a Dwayne McDuffie is. So that's part.
I think that one of the interesting thing there with Milestone, that's really pushing the the Black American hero, and I think that's wonderful. I think it's also another example of their diversity push, which I very much welcome, and I think is underrepresented in the DC universe, is the Asian superheroes. And the DC Festival of Heroes, the Asian Superhero Celebration, is coming out in May 11th. It's Jean Lewin Yang, Marika Tamaki, Min Lee, Ram V, Greg Pak, Dustin Eugen, Amy Chu, Elisa Wong, with artists Bernard Chang, Marcia Takara, Dustin Eugen, Trunglin Eugen, Francis Manipul, Marcus Tao, Sean Chen. Portraits by Cliff Shang, Jim Jung, Jay Lee, Jen Bartel. I mean, there's Stanley Archer Lau. And all the classic Asian superheroes. I mean, very
grunge.
It's just yeah. I mean, it's sounds really cool, and of course, I like Cassandra Cain, and I got to tell you, I love Cassandra Cain, and it pisses me off that they keep Caucasianizing her. She's Asian. I don't know why they draw her. Why do they keep drawing her? Every time they draw Cassandra Cain, they unslant her eyes even more. They westernize her eyes even more. What the hell's going on? Like
every time I see her without her mask on, nobody ever draws her with the same skin tone twice.
Well, that's just it. I mean, I don't know, like, make up your mind. Like, look, I love Cassandra Cain, but even when I remember reading the series, she's Lady Shiva's daughter, okay, and David Cain was Caucasian, but still, I thought she was either Korean and American or maybe Asian American. But I mean, but make her Asian, give her that to celebrate, but be true to it. And it's amazing that I'm actually surprised in these politically correct times in our culture right now. I'm surprised more people don't get upset about it. I mean, I'm easygoing about stuff like that, but
well, it's because nobody knows who Cassandra Cain is anymore, except for like old school fans. You never see her anymore. I mean, I got into comics in the New 52. My first like real big exposure to Cassandra Cain was in Batman and Robin Eternal. For worse or for worse. Notice the play on words there. So it's so hard to say. I don't think anybody actually knows who she is.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how. I mean, I don't want to get on the whole. I'm not saying there's an agenda to be racist or anything like that, but I'd be lying if I thought if I didn't think that there was a little bit of trying to move away from Cassandra Cain, because then they made spoiler Batgirl, and now there's Batgirls. Now it's both Stephanie Brown and Cassandra Cain both being Batgirls together, and they almost look like buddy buddy. And there's a movement away from Cassandra Cain's Asian heritage, and it actually bothers me, because I grew up loving Cassandra. I just love the character, and it kind of bothers me a bit. And it's good to see her in this Festival of Heroes Asian Superhero Celebration, because since she's appears to be in it, well, good. Then I sure as hell hope they draw her. They don't draw her like a Caucasian.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll get it right. Over at Marvel, they're doing a great job. They've got Shang-Chi by Jean Luen Yang, and they've got an Iron Fist series going on right now. It's got a whole plethora of Asian characters that's being written by the great Larry Hama. So there's no shortage of great Asian creators. I mean, listening to Boone read off that list, man, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot Jen Bartel was, Asian. She's a great artist. Dustin Nguyen, another great creator. Greg Pak. I mean, yeah, list goes on and on. I mean, everybody knows Jim Lee obviously is the big 300-pound gorilla in the room. But yeah, I'm glad they're doing it too, because I saw an article yesterday that really kind of pissed me off, and we know there's been a rise in hate crimes against people of Asian descent ever since the COVID-19 pandemic started. People blaming them, calling it the Kung flu and all that kind of garbage. And it just makes me so mad. Like they don't have anything to do with it. Some random Asian woman walking down the street in San Francisco has absolutely nothing to do with this virus. It's not her fault. And you're taking it out on some innocent person. You're just a scumbag. And you better hope I don't catch you doing it, because I won't stand for it. I'll tell you right now.
Yeah.
Not to get political, but that shit pisses me off.
No, I feel you. If I ever caught somebody doing something like that, I would marry their mom and ground them for fucking eternity. So that would be the move. Just make the most embarrassing hassle of all. I would dedicate my life, drop comics, commit to marrying their mother, and ground them for the rest of their fucking lives. And make them read Bendis Superman over and over and over again.
Ultimate torture.
Yeah.
Ultimate.
No. Yeah, I've read enough bad comics these last 2 years to find enough torture material. So there we are. No, I mean I love Cassie Kane. Like she was one of those characters that seemed really confusing based on Batman and Robin Eternal. I was just a wee lad getting into comic books. And I went back, read No Man's Land and her introduction there and things of that nature. And man, she's like one of the coolest characters in the Bat family. And I always wonder why DC never A, gives her the spotlight, because she is a great character, but B, because she also does sort of fill the role of like talking about an interesting, diverse character that already exists. I mean, you don't need to put a lot of manpower into creating a brand new character. And she wears the bat symbol. Like, she is everything that DC wants. A lovable character that is diverse, that has a bat on her chest. How do you not...
I bet if DC could go back, they'd say, can we not make her, mute? Can we make her more in the Deadpool style, so she has a lot to say? That's kind of they sort of, not realizing that they sort of wrote themselves into a corner a little bit. And I think she totally worked the way that she was, but not making her very loquacious early on. I'm just trying to, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just trying to think of reasons that she didn't hit real big like she should. There was a time where she was kind of big, but I don't know, she didn't have staying power. Maybe nobody knew how to write her. But I feel like she should be a bigger character than, like, I feel like Kate Kane as Batwoman, when she came on the scene, she arguably made just as big of a splash, but has seemed to have more staying power. She even has a TV show, although it's not Kate Kane anymore because the actor left. But yeah, I don't know. I think Cassandra Cain to me is a more interesting character than Kate Kane.
Yeah, I agree. You know what? I think there's just so much opportunity with Cass that I just don't understand why DC has never seen. Like, in my mind, I think Cass could be written as like a high functioning autistic superhero. And I think that you could really delve on that. She's nonverbal. she's very sort of hyper focused in like one or two different areas that she is brilliant at. It's not like it's a creative stretch just for the sake of, you know, being representative. This is a legitimate thing that you could talk about and like actually add organic representation into the DC universe. Like I don't know. There's just I really don't understand why we can't get Cassandra Cain into the main line. Like she's
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And one of the things that really hurt Cassandra Cain is after Puckett left the book, DC had an event called 1 year later. And that when the heroes came back 1 year later, and this is one of the reasons why I hate future stories, and I'm not a fan of Future State. 1 year later, when Cass came back, she didn't have her disability. She could talk. She all the stuff that made her special, she never had anymore. And it really took away from her character, and it made, because what made her unique was that she was from birth. She was taught the language of motion. And that's why, and I've always said that, and I agree 100% that she was, I remember you interviewed Brian Hill one time, Dark Knight, and you'd said, and I asked him, because I always thought Cassandra Cain was autistic on the spectrum. I always thought that, because I thought that what made her special is that she sees in the language of motion. She doesn't, and her beautiful flaw is that she can't speak, or she can speak, but it's very difficult for her. And her other flaw is that she can't read. Cassandra Cain could never read. That's what made her stories so interesting to read. Some of her adventures, she could kick ass, but she's in a room and she doesn't know how to read a sign that says exit. But she would have to deduce it or infer it. I mean, and what made her so fascinating, and she wasn't just another Batman family martial artist. But then they took all that away, and unfortunately now, thanks to the god-awful Batman and Robin Eternal, with their whole mother storyline, which I hated, I didn't like the way they redid her origin at all. I don't think she's as special as she could be, and I really think they should go back and do that. But anyways, I digress. But I agree, they need to focus. They need to make her on the spectrum for autism, and I think that would make her even more unique.
Yeah, changing her into Orphan and the New 52 and all that was just
didn't work.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I know some people love her. I love her too, but for a different reason. I like her classic interpretation.
Yeah, no, great character that is utterly squandered. As far as I'm concerned, Stephanie Brown should have stayed dead after War Games. And
here. Remember how much slack the writer got for killing her off? The writer of Fables, what the hell's his name?
Mark Buckingham.
What? Oh yeah, Bill Willingham. He wrote that arc, and he wrote that arc where Stephanie Brown died, where Leslie, because people got so upset with him because it was Leslie Tompkins that intentionally let Stephanie Brown die because she was angry with Batman. And people hated that storyline so much that even Bill Willingham got pissed off online about it. He got so much back flack for it that they basically, DC undid that storyline and they brought Stephanie Brown back, and in order to salvage Leslie Tompkins' character by saying that, well, Leslie Tompkins didn't really let her die because they needed to save Leslie Tompkins' character. But anyways, I didn't care. It's like, I don't care if they stay in Leslie Tompkins' character. Just leave that bitch dead.
we all have to make sacrifices.
Let that bitch die. I don't care. I didn't lose that thing.
I've always had problems with her as a character. I mean, the fact that she's Kite Man's daughter.
Cluemaster.
Yeah.
Cluemaster, right. Sorry.
Right.
I get
you know what? Mark McKeever, I retweet that. Batman Mechanic Harold never gets any love. They made him a traitor in Hush. Harold, my God. Yo, can we get a hashtag going for Harold?
Yeah, Harold was if you were reading comics, if you're reading Batman comics in the 90s, Harold was the man. He was
he should be a legit member of the Bat family now. I mean, shit, you killed Alfred. Like, give us Harold back at least.
Bring back Harold.
Gosh.
Speaking of characters that don't talk, so
Right.
bring back Harold, give him a love interest.
Gosh. Ugh. That's okay. So do we have any other books to talk about on that slate?
No, that's the whole list.
Oh.
Although I'm sure we could pull something out of our butt, just like the way they pulled this list out. But
yeah,
no.
except make it pretty good. That'd be the key difference. Now,
That's the list. Although it does also say
more Batman books coming soon.
So Jim Lee made a statement reaffirming DC's commitment to publishing comics and the direct market. So DC not going away, unlike what you might hear from Rob Liefeld and certain other former DC artists. He also referenced 2020 sales successes such as Batman 3 Jokers, Deceased Dead Planet, Batman the Joker War, Dark Knight's Death Metal, and Lee provided updates on the more than $1.1 million raised for the Book Industry Charitable Foundation to help struggling comic book stores. And I will give Jim Lee credit. I mean, the fact that the guy's sketches have raised $1.1 million for struggling comic book stores is it's definitely to be acknowledged. Jim Lee's he doesn't have to do that. And he's been kind of killing himself doing a lot of those sketches. So
I've not heard a single retailer. Have you guys heard of a single retailer that's gotten a check from Jim Lee? Or from I've not heard a single retailer tweet or say.
Yeah, I've seen some retailers on Twitter and some bookstores talk about getting checks from the Book Industry Charitable Foundation.
Well, okay, good. I'd just be curious because I know my retailer hasn't gotten any, but I guess he's Canadian, so that doesn't count.
Did he apply for it? You have to apply for it.
Yeah,
I don't know. I imagine.
I don't know if BINC, as it's called, is just a North American foundation or if it's international. I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's an American thing, but either way, I know that you had to apply for it anyways, and I don't think my retailer even applied for it. But yeah, I mean, like you said, Jason, I mean, giving credit where credit's due. I mean, what Jim Lee did was astounding. It was huge and massively inspiring. So a lot major props to Jim Lee for doing what he did. And, I mean, he really, just him alone put up 75% of the artwork that was auctioned off to BINC. Like,
might even have been more than that. I don't think he finished actually. So it was supposed to be 60 sketches. I think he's done almost 60. But I know he took a big long break because he was just burnt out. He got to 52 or 54, something like, and he's just like, man, I need to just take a break because he was cranking them out one a day.
He was on a roll.
Yeah, like 6-8 hours. So yeah, I know he did a couple more recently. So I don't know if he ever got all 60 out. But what I'm waiting for is, he's going to put out a book that has all of the sketches, and that the money for the sale of the book is going to go to charity as well. So
awesome.
I'll spend a couple $100 on the book. Obviously, I couldn't spend. I think that the cheapest sketch went for like over $3,000. Some went for, 11, 12 grand. I'm like, oh my God, yeah.
I mean, like Jim, if you want Jim Lee original art, you're putting down like a car, like not even a car payment. You are paying for a brand new car off the lot.
Yeah, basically. And it wasn't so crazy. Just even a few years ago, you could get them at a smaller show, but
yeah. And I agree with Taylor's sentiment here. He says that some of those sketches have been his best book in a while. His recent covers have been kind of lackluster, so it's kind of crazy to see how high quality some of those sketches were.
Yeah, because he can be more experimental and try newer things, and he does that kind of stuff on his Twitch channel all the time, as opposed to the covers. They need to be a little more commercial. I'm not the biggest Jim Lee fan. I think his art's good. He's obviously above average and clearly one of the most popular and well-known artists, but he's not on like any of my like top 5 favorite artist lists or anything like
honestly, that. I put Jim Lee along with a host like with J. Scott Campbell, that they're both overrated. And I feel like that meme of the guy sitting behind the desk with the sign in front of me that says Jim Lee and J. Scott Campbell are overrated. Talk me out of it. Prove me wrong. And the only way they can do it is if they actually do some work and draw a full comic book. Because I mean, and I say that because I think that I think they probably are underrated now. because they're overrated. They don't do enough work.
Yeah,
And Jim Lee, I mean, doing it all for charity. Okay, that's great, fantastic, but contribute to the industry that's given you your livelihood. I mean, draw some comic books.
Last time I don't see this is the problem. If his only responsibility was drawing comics and not being a dad to like 13 kids and running DC business side of things at DC, maybe. But and somebody correct me if I'm wrong in chat, the last monthly book I remember him drawing was Superman Unchained with Scott Snyder.
100% correct.
And man, that was some of the worst art I've seen from Jim Lee. Some panels, it was wildly unfinished. So I don't want him, if that's what it's going to look like, I don't want him drawing compare that, like look at that work in Superman Unchained and compare it to his work in Batman Hush.
Or even honestly, for how horrible the story was, Batman, All-Star Batman and Robin might have Jim Lee's best art ever.
Yeah, I have a hard time even opening up that book. It's so.
I own all the singles, like so.
I did. But oh, good lord.
Yeah, I mean, I when Jim Lee is firing on all cylinders, I love Jim Lee. Jim Lee has also not drawn anything, in 15 years that I think is, first of all, Jim Lee has drawn 3 stories in the last 20 years. 3. Superman Unchained, All-Star Batman and Robin. Okay, 4. Hush, and 2 arcs of Jeff Johns' Justice League. How many of those? First of all, okay, the Justice League run, not his best work. Still good. Hush, okay, arguably some of the best of his career. Also well written and well acclaimed. Batman, All-Star Batman and Robin, which is known to be like one of the biggest dumpster fires in all of DC Comics history, but his art was absolutely on point. And then you have Superman Unchained, which, like you've said, horrible. Definitely not his best work. So I do kind of agree. I don't think that Jim Lee is like on the Mount Rushmore of comic book artists anymore. Not only does he not have the body of work, he's not really working at all anymore. And what he does do is not that great. I remember when he was doing the Batman Damned covers, I was like, these are kind of bad. Like, like why would I pay for Jim Lee's mediocre cover when I got Lee Bermejo on the A?
Yeah, I don't know. It depends on what your criteria is for putting him on the Mount Rushmore of comic book artists. I mean, you want to talk about how to get a book to have sales? Get a Jim Lee cover. If you can get him to do, even just a few pages. Didn't he do the art for the Kevin Smith story in the Detective Comics or the Batman?
Yes.
I thought the artwork there was pretty good. I mean, it was only like an 8-page story.
Yeah. So I mean, he had half a year to draw 8 pages, in which case you're in good shape.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the guy's busy. Don't get me wrong. And I'm sure that if he was drawing on a daily basis, that it would all come back to him. I mean, he has the technical skills. So I don't know. I feel like even though he's not my favorite, when you talk about like the most influential. And, a guy who's going to bring in the dollars, he's got to be on the Mount Rushmore along with Alex. And I'm not an Alex. I know this is sacrilege. I'm not an Alex Ross guy. I know his superheroes to me, they look like a bunch of old men and old women. Like, no, Superman's supposed to look young. Why does he look like he's 60? So I'm not a big Alex Ross guy, but.
Oh no. You're not going to leave us on the butt, are you, Internet?
What happened?
I don't know.
Just a second, I'm back. Yeah, but I think you got to put those two on the mountain. But then there's a huge criteria. I mean, how far do you go back to the very beginning of time?
Yeah,
comics, then Jack Kirby's like the #1 guy. He's the George Washington of comic book artists. And for a long time, when I first discovered comics, I didn't like Jack Kirby's art. For a long time, I did not like Jack Kirby's. I'm like, why is everybody like all blocky and square? And it took me a lot of years, actually, probably a good decade to 15 years before I realized I started learning more about making comics and sequential storytelling, and then I realized just how amazing Jack Kirby's art was. But like early on, just the aesthetic, like everybody was blocky, and I didn't like it. So
Yeah. No,
that's definitely a Mount Rushmore of comic artists. That's a whole nother 4-hour long podcast.
No, I'm sure we'll do one of those eventually. That's been sitting on like a list of topics that I have for Let's Talk Comics for forever. So I'm sure we'll get to that eventually. But no, I agree. I mean, like Jack Kirby was one of those guys that I didn't really appreciate as much until really this past year. At least not to the capacity that he deserved to be appreciated to.
Well,
so
we all know that Valentine D. Landro, who's done the Future State, Mr. Miracle, Shiloh, Norman art, definitely belongs on the Mount Rushmore of comic book artists.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
No,
he has his own mountain. Yeah, that is even higher than Mount Rushmore.
Made out of mashed potatoes.
Yes, made of mashed potatoes.
Yeah, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Overall, it's DC Comics is in a super weird position right now where, the idea, or we've all said it, they're just throwing shit at the fan. You very much see them struggling to doggy paddle in the middle of an Olympic sized pool, and just kind of like throwing out different lifelines. And if it catches enough fire on social media, they'll definitely do it. It's very evident by obviously this press release, by what they've done with the Future State titles, these anthology stories. I mean, it's not a good time to be a DC Comics fan, to be honest with you. I think on Jace's podcast, I actually awarded Image Comics as my new favorite publisher in the comic book space. So it's a weird time. If you want no sense and a lot of Batman, DC is going to be the place for you these next couple of years. But kind of closing out, what are your guys' impressions of this press release? Where do you think DC is going in the next couple of years? And how do you feel about it?
Well, I know exactly where they're going. Oh my God. Look, I think they're focusing, there's going to be one general theme, and that the general theme is going to be, is exactly what they never lied. When they said everything matters, that's absolutely true. It's everything. And we always say sarcastically back, well, if everything matters, nothing matters. You hear a lot of that. And that's really true. I will say this, they've put so much out. It's very diverse. It's all over the place. They got all kinds of wonderful products, wonderful shows out there in terms of cartoons, movies, shows. The marketing is going reasonably well for the Snyder Cut and for a lot of the DC kids and the cartoons and the movies. And there's a lot there in the young adult line. But frankly, the marketing on the comic books suck. They don't know what they're doing with comic books. So I predict that the DC comic books, or pardon me, DC outside DC publishing is going to continue to be fine. DC publishing is going to continue to struggle, and it will, it's going to have hit and misses, and we're going to have conversations like this. And their marketing department, I don't think they give a damn about their marketing department. I think we're going to get more stuff thrown at the wall like this. And it doesn't mean that I'm not going to enjoy some of their comic books, but I tell you right now, I do chuckle. I mean, to call this a press release of any way, in any way, shape, or form. I mean, they should be embarrassed. They really should be embarrassed, because this isn't even, I mean, and as Jay said, if you're, God forbid, you're a retailer and you're given this, I mean, holy shit. I mean, this is like walking into a restaurant, a Chinese restaurant, and not knowing, and having a looking at the menu, and you don't speak Chinese, and they finally give you the translation, and all they do is they tell you the ingredients of the food. They don't tell you what the food is. And you got to guess. I mean, it's nonsense. Total nonsense. Rant over.
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is that the marketing department at DC Comics is practically non-existent. It's down to a couple people. I feel bad for the executives and the editors that are still there that are just working, specifically on the publishing initiative, and they're not, further up the chain and have their hands on other Warner Brothers stuff, because this is all coming from up on high, and they're I guarantee you the guys that release these press releases, I guarantee you they are embarrassed, and that's part of the reason they're like, well, don't ask us questions because we don't know anything. They're not telling us anything. And I feel like it's the same with the creators and the same with the editorial staff. They're all being punished. They're being punished by AT&T for decisions they had nothing to do with. This has everything to do with the fact that whatever executive decided, hey, let's move DC out of insanely expensive offices in New York City and move them to even more insanely expensive offices in Burbank so they can be closer to the TV and movie side of Warner Brothers. And now you can't justify that extra expense because, as we all know, comic books they're not the medium of choice these days. There's too many other distractions on your iPad and on your cell phone and on your streaming service or what have you. That's just the fact of the matter. And it's like, all of a sudden, the people that work at DC Comics itself are paying the price. They're being punished for the diminishing returns for an industry that, it's not their fault. It's not their fault. There's a myriad of reasons why comics aren't as popular as they used to be, but they are shouldering the brunt. So unfortunately, I think what's going to happen is DC is going to keep circling the drain, and you're going to see fewer and fewer titles in terms of like actual print titles. They're going to continue to do these cost-cutting measures. And the only way that I really see it turning around is if they get to a point where the amount of money they're spending is so small that Warner Brothers and AT&T kind of stops paying attention to what they're doing, and somebody new comes in who's excited with a lot of good ideas to take over and can re-energize it. Somebody that has a leadership ability to kind of rally the troops the way Dan Didio does, and everybody gets on board and pulls in the same direction, and you do have a plan, and they can kind of rise from the ashes. That's the only way that I really see it turning around. Now, I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they actually do have a plan, and they just haven't gotten there yet. They're still struggling to put it together. But when I see things like this press release, it makes it really hard for me to believe that that's the case or that that's even possible. So, we all said it before when a year ago, I think it was when Dan Didio got fired was the first time we all got on a podcast together and talked about it. And we said, hey, it's gonna be a year before we know. Well, then we had the pandemic that kind of shut everything down and threw a monkey wrench in everything. But I guarantee you in a year, like not even a year, probably in 6 to 8 months, we'll be able to get on here and say, okay, this is what we expect from DC Comics. They're either going to be on the upswing or they're going to be circling the drain, and I'll have given up hope, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree with you there, man. I mean, I guess I tend to lean a little bit more pessimistic, so I don't see this going well. I think that in a big bad way, I think indie comic books are recapturing the sort of consciousness of comic book readers. I think you're seeing a lot of people disappointed by the big two, particularly with DC right now, obviously us included. And you're seeing a lot of creators flock over to doing their own independent titles where they can do as they see fit creatively and own the property, because intellectual property is a big fat chunk of change, in this world nowadays, and in this streaming service wars where everybody's looking for content. So I think the incentive is there. You're already starting to see it now. DC's biggest guys like Scott Snyder, Jeff Johns, Gary Frank, all going and moving on and doing independent stuff. Even some of Marvel's guys who are seemingly happy with what they're doing at Marvel are still keeping one foot in the indie space, i.e. Jeff Johns, Jason Aaron, so on and so. I'm sorry, not Jeff Johns, Donnie Cates and Jason Aaron, excuse me. So I think you're going to continue to see indie comics rise in popularity again. And I do think that we might see another couple of years now where perhaps an indie publisher takes over the number 2 spot for a while, and it forces DC to really reprocess themselves, because as far as I'm concerned, I think like the early 2000s, DC put out some of their best comics ever on a fairly consistent basis. And that was after they got their asses kicked by Image for almost a decade. And obviously they've been getting their asses kicked pretty consistently by Marvel for decades, plural, with a few exceptions. So perhaps we see the rise of indie, and maybe that's what it takes to get DC back on track is a complete and utter humiliation, which, you know, they're already on the way to doing. So
they've been embarrassing themselves for a while. I'll also say, as much as, I agree. And Images, they're a publishing umbrella. So that, anybody who wants to own something and have complete ownership of it, they go over to Image. But there's some other smaller publishers where they have a little piece of the pie and the creators still retain the majority of the IP. Like Aftershock is one of my favorite publishers and have been for a couple of years. So don't sleep on them. One last thing I wanted to mention, who we didn't even think about as a writer for any of those trash titles? What about Dan Didio? He's a comic book writer. He's not doing anything. I can't believe I didn't think of him for DC Dark Age?
I don't
remember what it was called. The Middle Ages.
Metal Man. His Metal Man is actually pretty good.
Yeah, but it's done. It's completed now.
I'm teasing Dan, but yeah, he's got something in the works. But can't say what it is. So
I don't know. I know he's taking a little bit more of a role in the Kubert School, doing stuff there. So, I doubt we see Dan DiDio on a DC book for a good while. I do think that there is a world where somebody else were to take over DC Comics and Dan DiDio were to come back and maybe do a story here or there, but I don't really see it happening based on what I understand. He's been relatively forthright in his interviews post leaving DC Comics, which I can appreciate. And it doesn't seem like he is overly interested in working under who's there right now, but only time to come.
Yeah, and he felt it was time for him to leave anyway. Mm-hmm. He felt like he was starting to repeat himself. So
yeah, it's not like we're Dan Slott and saying we're leaving Spider-Man only to write a Spider-Man adjacent title 2 months later. You know what I'm saying? So I think Dan DiDio is going to distance himself for a while, but that's kind of our thoughts on what's to come for DC Comics. Unfortunately, not a lot of good, but I think as three ardent DC fans, we kind of still hold out some flame of hope, albeit dwindling smaller and smaller. Obviously, we all have content coming out that is DC focused or analogous or none whatsoever. So do you guys want to let the people know at home what you have coming out in the near future, maybe something that you've dropped recently, and where they can find you?
Yep, I'm the Comic Source everywhere: Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or go to the comicsourceblog.com. Just do a Google search for the Comic Source, you'll find me. We're on all the podcast platforms: iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, all those places. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, we have our Nubia Real One interview coming up this coming Tuesday with the writer L.L. McKinney and the artist Robin Smith. Just last week on Kickstarter Spotlight, we spoke with Liam Sharp about the Unseen Jack Katz. Really great interview with Liam about a contemporary Golden Age artist of Alex Toth and Alex Raymond, who's still creating, which is amazing. And then, like I also mentioned before, our upcoming Wednesday Kickstarter Spotlights about Area 51, the Helix Project, issue number 2. So be sure you tune in for that one as well. And then, all our regular, episodes, Marvel Mondays and Superman Sundays and Future State Fridays and all that kind of stuff. We love the alliteration, as you can tell. So be sure to check us out.
Yeah, and I can be found at Comic Boom with an exclamation mark on YouTube. I will be reviewing Area 51, the Helix Project, issue 1, written by DarkKnightNation.
Imagine if that's what it said. Imagine if that's what it said on the title.
Well,
by DarkKnightNation.
I might have to call you DarkKnightNation in my review because otherwise I got to try to pronounce your last name. Which honestly, I would challenging. I'm not going to lie to you. It's like I say it different. I pronounce it differently every time I try to say it.
I would be honored to be on the list of names that you butchered.
So what you do is you get Knight to send you a little wave file of him saying his name correctly, and every time you say his name, you just dub in Knight's voice.
Hey, you can
movies where the lips don't match the words.
you can soundbite it. You can soundbite it. It's in the trailer. I say my full name.
I swear to God, I watched your trailer just to hear how you pronounce your name, and my first thought was, "My God, he pronounces his name wrong."
It is a hefty last name,
but hey, you must have confidence in your work since you didn't change your name. So I mean that's a plus right there. So, but no, I will be reviewing that. I'm looking forward to that, and yeah, and I'm gonna put up a couple more rant videos. I've only been putting out one video a week, so I'm sort of enjoying putting out more. I'll be putting out more rant videos. I think they're just easier to put together, and you know, it's all good. And you know, I'm reading a lot of indie stuff, and you know, nobody's going to be educated to learn anything. But you know, if you pop by my channel, and as long as you have a drink in your hand, you'll probably, you know, you won't be any dumber. I'll tell you that much.
Definitely, man. Yeah, over here, I mean, obviously, I've just put out the Kickstarter to my second issue of Area 51, the Helix project. You know, it's something that I've been busting my ass on for a while. This Kickstarter is working at a really good pace, so I really hope you guys go check it out. Here is the page. We're already so close to breaking $4,000 in the first 2 days, and I would be absolutely elated if we could knock that out and have that under our belt. There's a video trailer here if you're not entirely convinced to get a little bit up to speed. Plenty of promotional art here with the covers, amongst other things. You'll be able to get a good sense of what the book might be about, and you will have plenty of opportunities here to pick up your copy of issue 1 as well if you aren't caught up. Digital copies, physical copies. I promise that I will 100%, 1000% deliver on what you pay for here. You know, one of my biggest criticisms that I get from my friends here are that I don't pay myself for this. So you know, I'm putting everything into this book creatively. In terms of the profit, I even made a Zack Snyder joke on my thing. So I need you to go and go check this out. So somebody laughs at my Zack Snyder joke, because I'm tired of doing it alone. And there are a bunch of really cool rewards for you guys in here between getting copies of the book, really cool swag, shirts, sweaters, even an opportunity to get drawn into a book, with this page being an example. You can get killed in my comic book. That's pretty freaking cool. So consider checking it out. I would super appreciate it. You know, I worked really hard, and I've gotten nothing but positive reviews so far. So I hope that makes you inclined. In terms of Dark Knight Nation, you can obviously catch me on the channel doing discussions with guys like these. I also plan on putting out a Radiant Black review very soon, as well as a DC Future State Catwoman review. So keep an eye out for that, amongst other things. And hopefully we'll be talking to you guys about something a little bit more positive next time we go live, because I'm kind of burnt out on these DC live discussions. Maybe we'll talk about something good like indie. So if you guys have any suggestions for podcast topics that you'd like to see us talk about, please feel free to leave them down in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts on the overall state of DC Comics, the future state of future state, as one might say. And you can find these gentlemen using links in the description below to both of their media platforms and their social media platforms. So thank you guys so much for watching. Obviously, thank you to the two gentlemen that are joining me in the wee hours of the night. And thank you to those of you that have already contributed and backed Area 51, the Helix Project. I appreciate you. I am so very grateful, and onward and upward. So we'll catch you guys next time, and have a wonderful rest of your night.
See you, everybody.
See you.